Hi, I'm John Parks, and this is my studio in Dutchess County. I'm fortunate enough to have quite a wonderful space to work in, as you can see. I've been a painter pretty much all my life. I began in the English art school system and finished with my graduate work at the Royal College of Art. And I began my career as a portrait painter, doing a number of big commissions in London, including the famous Pears Portrait Commission. I came to New York in the late 70s, and at the time I became very interested in some of the realist painting that was going on there, and I began to do a long series of paintings of London, most of which I actually did in New York. I would go back and forth, take photographs, do drawings, and build these very meticulous paintings of neighborhoods in which I'd grown up as a boy. These occupied me for a number of years, after which I began to get more interested in man-made landscape, the culture of gardening, and the kind of mythology associated with all kinds of British subject matter. From there I moved on to other British imagery, and I used a larger scale and more raucous approach to kicking British images around, and gradually I began to realize that my work was about the whole question of national identity, the sort of myths we use to bind nations, tribes, groups together, how that works and how religious we get about them in a way, and how uncomfortable it can be to have them knocked around by painters such as myself, for instance. Lately I've been working on a group of paintings from memory, looking at childhood myths and using a very childish approach to painting them. I've been actually using my fingers to put the paint on, so essentially they're finger paintings, albeit somewhat more sophisticated than your average child's finger painting. So my work has moved along during the years. It's had some themes that run all the way through it, and I find that I remake it from time to time, moving it into areas that I hadn't explored and continually trying to challenge myself to bring new things into the work. As a teacher at the School of Visual Arts, I teach two subjects for continuing ed. One on Tuesday nights is called Making It Real, and this is a 12-week crash course in all the nuts and bolts issues involved in making coherent, illuminated, consistent space in the painting. We look at turning the form, making forms feel super real and three-dimensional. We look at painting translucencies on night scenes, how to paint textures. We look at colored light and landscape. We also pay some attention to technique in terms of underpainting, overpainting techniques, different kinds of paint film that we can develop to get certain kinds of effects. So that, although it's fairly technical, I try to make it entertaining in terms of the subject matter. We work from the model, we work from still life. We try and have things that will inspire us a little bit, and I find the subject matter actually helps a great deal in terms of keeping the students engaged. In general, we try and have fun with it and make it work for the student themselves in terms of what they want to do. The other subject that I teach is portrait painting. As I said, I began as a portrait painter, and I've always painted portraits all the way through. Portrait painting is one of the most wonderful things you can do in painting, looking at another individual not only as a physical being, but perhaps as a person and as a spiritual being. We begin with a very straightforward approach where we're looking at color and tonal relationships and how they can be used to create the sense of flesh. And we go on from there to look at the drawing and the structure of the head, different ways of breaking it down so we can present the head simply and clearly and forcefully. And of course we're working from the model all the time, so you get to look up close at the human head and really study it and get engaged with it. We also look at some ideas in portrait painting that are not quite to do with straightforward representation, expression, for instance, or the way we can use posture and setting to reinforce the sense of the portrait. The portrait painters I really admire are painters like Rembrandt, Velasquez, Rubens, John Singer Sargent, painters who used the very painterly approach, who could swing the brush and give a sense of pizzazz and liveliness to the work. In some ways, I'm more inclined to like those painters than the more classical painters like, say, Ingres, who used a very, very careful, very laborious approach to making paintings. So what we do in class is try and get there quite quickly, where we paint fairly fast, we look at color combinations that work well for us, and we try and get the painting to be alive and present. And generally this approach works very well. Students within a few weeks get up and running and have paintings that feel lively and present. All of these courses welcome both beginners and people all the way up to professional. We get quite a mix, and it works out very well for everybody. In the end, we're trying to do something that is joyous, that is giving the world back to our audience in a way that's more engaging, more wonderful than perhaps they could have ever imagined it. Painting is a wonderful thing to do. It's a way of transforming the world, both for ourselves and for others, in all kinds of ways. And I'm still passionate about it after 40 years of working as a painter. So please come and join us. I'm sure you'll enjoy it and you'll have a great deal of fun. Thank you.